Hey, Noah here. Welcome back to another Chef RPG devlog. We got a ton of new subscribers since the last video, and I really appreciate all the amazing support from everyone. I also received a ton of great feedback, which I'll go over at the end of the video, along with my future plans for Chef RPG and for this channel. So, for the past month and a half, I've spent most of my time coding to create the first phase of the restaurant gameplay loop. I also spent a lot of time just fixing bugs and fixing badly organized scripts. After the bugs were fixed, it took a couple weeks to put together this restaurant loop, which I think is probably the most complicated part of the game coding-wise. I knew that if I could code this, then the coding for the rest of the game should be fairly straightforward, so really glad it managed to work in the end. This restaurant loop features customers, chefs, and waiters all interacting with each other. It looks pretty hectic at first glance since there's a lot of stuff going on. Let's jump in and break down what's happening and see how this restaurant loop is put together. Like before, the restaurant has some tables, chairs, and appliances, and I added a few chefs and waiters. First, we have to go to the restaurant manager to set up a menu. So, as discussed before in a previous devlog, you get to choose appetizers, mains, desserts, and drinks. You can only add dishes that you have the ingredients for, as well as the required cooking appliances. After the menu is set up, we can open the restaurant. For now, I just added an open restaurant button for easy testing. When clicked, the first customer arrives, and more keep arriving as long as there are available seats. Now, in typical restaurant games, tables and chairs are built together. I didn't want to do this because it really hinders the freedom of the player to build whatever they want. Instead, I added a script that finds table spots that are linked to a single chair and sets it as one dining spot. If there are more than one chair next to a table spot, the dining spot won't be created. If the chair is facing the wrong way, the dining spot won't be created. I think this dynamic feature allows players to build more freely and create their own unique restaurant layouts. The customer will choose an available dining spot and head there using a pathfinding script. Here's a short clip of the pathfinding script in action, which allows the NPC to take the nearest route to a target location. I followed a great tutorial to create this script. If you want to create your own, I put in a link to the tutorial down below. Note that this Pathfind tutorial is designed for 3D games and requires some modifications to work for a 2D game. After sitting down, the customer will order up to 4 dishes at random, starting with a drink, then appetizer, then main, and finally a dessert. Here, I added a bar for all of the orders that are created, so you as the player can see what's next and get a general sense of how many orders there are. Real restaurants typically have these to keep track of orders in the kitchen. Here, the first order is added to the bar. When there is an available chef, the chef will come pick up the order. You'll see that right away the tab is picked up, taken out from the orders bar, and moved into the in progress bar. At this point, the chef will first head to the fridge and pick up the ingredients. Then head to the appliance to begin cooking. I've begun adding some animations to these appliances so that you can tell when they're on or off. When the dish is cooked, the chef will bring the finished dish over to the counter over here. Now, you can see here that there's no animation for picking up and moving objects, and that's something that will need to be added in later. At this point, the tab is removed from the in progress bar. The dish will call for a free waiter who will come over and pick up the dish to bring to the customer. When the dish is delivered to the customer's next order will be added to the order bar. The customer will eat and leave behind an empty plate. The waiter must come over and clear the table before the next dish can be delivered. Normally, cooking each dish would consume ingredients. For testing purposes, that feature has been turned off, so if I don't do anything, these poor NPCs will be trapped forever in this infinite loop. For now, I added a close restaurant button here, which stops new customers from arriving. After some time, the customers will depart when they have finished eating, and eventually, after the last customer has left, you will get a financial report for the day's service. Standard numbers like revenue, cost of ingredients, wages, and rent are all included here. I also added a basic customer satisfaction system where the satisfaction is based on how long a customer has to wait for their dish. The longer the customer waits, the lower the score, which directly impacts your tips. It could potentially impact what awards you receive and whether more customers will come to your restaurant in the future. Here, you can see that the customer satisfaction number is pretty low, which means they waited too long for their dishes. This means that you may need to hire more chefs and waiters to speed up service. Currently, your player character is not involved in the cooking gameplay. Later on, I will script this part in and maybe add a cooking minigame for when your character is cooking. When you are starting the game, you will be the only chef in the restaurant, supported by one other waiter. As you grow and expand, you will be able to hire unique chef and waiter characters to help support and run your restaurants. So that's about it for the first phase of the restaurant. I think all these things are fairly standard in the restaurant management genre, with most restaurant games implementing some variation of these features. However, I wanted to create a more unique restaurant game where running a restaurant is only part of the gameplay. Since this game is called Chef RPG, not Restaurant Manager, your player character needs to be much more involved in the outcome of the game. I want to make a transition to talking about game design and my strategy moving forward for a Chef RPG. As a kid, I've probably played over 100 Flash games between mini-clips, armor games, and Congregate. One of the games that I really liked is a game called Ilona Shooter, which is kind of like a tower defense game. In this game, you control one character to fend off waves of monsters each day. You can hire more characters over time to improve your defenses, which is pretty standard for tower defense games. So what does a tower defense game have to do with Chef RPG? Well, what's different in Ilona Shooter is that at the end of the day, you are given a number of action points and some money to spend. You can use your points and money to hire more characters like in normal tower defense games, or you can invest your money and points into things like chickens, which is a cost up front but can generate value in the long run. You can also focus on buying and upgrading weapons, or investing in skills, or gamble on random events. There's only a limited amount of money and points to invest, and the wrong choices will eventually cost you the game. In summary, the decisions you make between battles is just as important, if not more important, than the battle itself. Ilona Shooter becomes a game driven by a multitude of player decisions rather than simply deciding which towers to build or upgrade. I played this game again a few weeks ago, and it really got me thinking about the importance of decisions in games. Coming back to Chef RPG, I can actually draw the comparison that the restaurant service portion is like a tower defense game, where the customers are the monsters you have to fend off and satisfy. The furniture and the staff are the towers you build to battle the customers. However, the restaurant service might only be 1/4 of the whole day, and what you do in a time where the restaurant is not open will greatly impact how well the service goes. For example, the important decisions that the player makes should not be about which dishes to feature, which pieces of furniture to build, how many chefs and waiters to hire, which are the decisions you make in typical restaurant games. Of course, these decisions will still be there and still affect the game. However, I want the decisions that the player focuses on to be along the lines of, should I go climb up the volcano today and gather some rare ingredients for my molecular gastronomy research facility? Or should I go check out the bathhouse where I could hang out with the locals with potential unexpected outcomes? Or perhaps I should use the day to take a train to Billboard City and check out their world-renowned culinary school? I think these kind of decisions, combined with the freedom to open your restaurant whenever you wish, contained within a 24-hour day, could create some really unique and memorable gameplay experiences. For the final game, I'm probably going to create 2 game modes. A story mode where you can play however you wish, and it's a game where you can relax in. A second mode could be a challenge mode, where there isn't much story and you just have to survive as long as possible. In this mode, the decisions you make become super critical. Ilona Shooter is an extremely punishing game if you don't know what you're doing. However, the greater focus on decision making combined with tower defense creates a very addictive game, and I think that same game style could be really interesting if applied to Chef RPG. Those are my thoughts so far about moving forward. I just want to emphasize that the game is very early in development and needs a ton of work in both content and art quality. On the topic of art, I got a lot of great feedback in the past few weeks regarding pixel art. I have a background in art and design, but fairly new to pixel art, so I'm still learning as I go. The 3 main issues that came up are regarding pillow shading, banding, and color palette. So this is what pillow shading looks like. It's fairly intuitive to do this when drawing, but apparently is bad practice in pixel art. I didn't notice at first, but now looking at it, it completely makes sense, and I think the art could look a lot better if all of the pillow shading is removed. The other one is banding, which happens on long straight edges. When a couple layers are stacked up like this, you get this very apparent staircasing going on that is visible even when zoomed out. It happens mostly on roofs and really doesn't look good, so I'll definitely remove these. Finally, there was the issue of color palette. I didn't use a color palette when starting this game, and I'm starting to realize why you should definitely start with a color palette. It's hard to describe, but certain combinations of colors, when used correctly, really just looks much better than drawing without a color palette, and also sets up a really distinct atmosphere. So moving forward, I'm definitely going to start developing a color palette, both for the world and the food art. The next thing on my to-do list is expanding the open world and start developing the hunting and harvesting systems, which make up a large part of the gameplay. After that, the skill system for the characters and NPCs will need to be developed. At that point, the game will be ready for a major round of art polish, which involves finalizing a distinct style and improving or redrawing most of the sprites. So yeah, a ton of work ahead and really pushing for that first demo. Finally, just a quick word about the future of this YouTube channel. I'm really glad that you guys enjoyed that last design video and found that video helpful. And I really love sharing my thoughts towards architecture and design, so definitely looking forward to making more videos in that format. Those videos do take a lot longer to make though, so I'll likely alternate between devlogs and pixel art time lapses in between. I'm also developing some ideas for architecture specific videos, but these will likely be released later down the road. So that's about it for today. Really appreciate you guys watching the video and hope to see you next time. Bye.